in the darkness of our secrets, in the shadows of our true intentions. That's where we truly discover who we are before the divine. When no one is watching, who are we really? This question echoes through the centuries, since these words we'll study today were first spoken. Welcome to another Bible study. Today we'll dive into the depths of Matthew chapter 6, a text that challenges not just our external actions, but primarily the hidden motives of our hearts. This chapter, part of the famous Sermon on the Mount, is especially relevant in our era of appearances and external validation. In a world where we carefully craft our public personas, Jesus confronts us with an uncomfortable question. Are we living for human eyes or for something more transcendent? What we'll discover today isn't a set of religious rules, but an invitation to examine the shadows of our spirituality, those parts that nobody sees, but which define who we truly are. Prepare yourself for an encounter with truths that might destabilize your understanding of genuine devotion. Let's begin our journey. Matthew chapter 6 begins with cutting words that pierce through the masks we wear daily. Let's read the first verses. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. In the ancient world, religious ostentation was a common practice. Some Pharisees actually blew trumpets before giving alms, transforming an act of charity into a public spectacle. Jesus unmasks this spiritual theatricality with surgical precision. Today, we don't blow trumpets, but we have equally disturbing modern equivalents. Volunteering to embellish resumes, donations that require names engraved on plaques, acts of charity strategically photographed for later recognition. How many of us measure the value of our generosity by how much it's noticed and praised? Jesus continues in verses 3 and 4. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. The metaphor is powerful. Not even your own left hand should know what your right hand is doing. This is a level of privacy that challenges our modern understanding. It's not just about hiding from others, but almost hiding from yourself, not allowing yourself to be contaminated by pride. In an era of constant surveillance and exposure, imagine the revolutionary power of doing good without leaving records. No public recognition, no mention in work meetings, no receipts for tax deductions. Just you and that invisible presence Jesus calls Father. Now Jesus turns his gaze to another religious practice, prayer. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. Public prayer was a spectacle in first-century Jewish culture. Some religious leaders chose specific prayer times to be at busy corners, extending their prayers with elaborate language and dramatic gestures. Today, how many of us shape our religious language when we're in public? Elaborate prayers in church meetings, but silence in our rooms. Deep spiritual conversations at religious retreats, but emptiness at home. Memorized Bible quotes to impress at Bible studies, but scriptures rarely consulted in moments of solitude. Jesus then reveals the antidote to this performative spirituality. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. The room mentioned here wasn't a spacious room like we have today. In ancient Palestine, houses were small, and this room was often just a closet, a tiny space. Jesus is literally asking us to squeeze into a place where no one sees us, where there's no stage or audience. Think about it. In a world where we document every moment of our lives, is there still space for this kind of deep and invisible intimacy? What parts of your spirituality exist only when no one is looking? I ask you, who are you when no one is watching? Which version of your faith exists when there's no external validation, when there are no witnesses to your devotion? Continuing our exploration of the shadows of devotion, Jesus now guides us to another arid territory of performative religiosity, fasting. Let's read. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. In Jesus' time, some individuals deliberately disheveled their appearances during fasting. Dirty faces, unkempt hair, suffering expressions. It was a walking billboard proclaiming, "See how spiritually dedicated I am." Today, this principle manifests in our conversations casually sprinkled with mentions of our spiritual practices. In WhatsApp groups, where we announce our sacrifices. In subtle hints of spiritual superiority at community meetings. The coffee circles after worship have become our modern stage, where we discreetly signal our devotion. But Jesus completely reverses this logic. Anoint your head and wash your face. Appear at your best, not at your worst. Hide the sacrifice. Make the struggle invisible. Let only the eyes that see in secret know the depth of your commitment. And now Jesus takes us to one of the most disturbing passages in this chapter, the confrontation with our materialism. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In these words, Jesus isn't just making an observation. He's performing a spiritual autopsy, revealing where our heart truly dwells. The inhabitants of ancient Palestine perfectly understood these images. Expensive fabrics destroyed by moths, precious metals corroded by oxidation, mud walls easily penetrated by thieves. Everything they valued was constantly under threat. Today, our modern version isn't so different. Bank accounts vulnerable to economic collapses, technological devices that become obsolete in months, properties that can be taken by a natural disaster in seconds. Jesus continues with a disturbing visual metaphor. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? The eye was considered the window through which light entered the body. A good eye in Hebrew culture wasn't just about physical vision, but about generosity. A bad eye represented greed and covetousness. Think about this. Jesus is suggesting that our relationship with material possessions isn't just an external behavior, but a filter through which we perceive all reality. Greed isn't just a sin among many. It's a spiritual cataract that distorts everything we see. And finally, Jesus confronts us with our daily anxieties. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Look at the birds of the air. Consider the lilies of the field. In an agricultural society where hunger was a constant threat, Jesus points to birds and flowers, creatures that live entirely in the present, with no capacity to plan for the future or accumulate resources. In our society of burnout, chronic anxiety and exhaustion, these words resonate as a disturbing invitation to abandon our control mechanisms. In a world obsessed with insurance, retirement plans, and financial security, Jesus seems almost irresponsible in his proposal. I ask you, what anxiety occupies your mental horizon at this exact moment? What worry about tomorrow is stealing your ability to be present today? What would Jesus say about how you carry the weight of the future? We've reached the end of our journey through the depths of Matthew 6, a text that doesn't offer us easy comfort, but an unrelenting mirror for our soul. What we've seen today wasn't just a set of religious teachings, but an X-ray of the shadows of human devotion. Jesus, with surgical precision, exposed three great illusions that inhabit our hearts. First illusion, the spirituality of appearances, the belief that our religious practices have value when performed for an audience. Jesus demolished this illusion by showing that the true value of our prayers, alms, and fasting lies precisely in the moments when no one is watching. Second illusion, the security of material possessions, the conviction that we can build impenetrable earthly fortresses. Jesus reminded us that everything we accumulate is at the mercy of deterioration, theft, loss, Our greatest treasures are as fragile as petals in the wind. Third illusion, control over the future. The fantasy that our anxiety can somehow protect us from what's coming. Jesus confronted us with the uncomfortable truth that our worries don't add a single day to our existence. The invitation Jesus makes in this chapter is revolutionary. To live a spirituality of the shadows, not in the sense of moral obscurity, but in the sense of a devotion that flourishes in invisible spaces, away from the spotlight, where only the divine can witness. In a world obsessed with visibility, followers, metrics, and external validation, perhaps the most radical act is precisely to cultivate the invisible, that which no one applauds, that which no one likes, that which will never go viral. So, what to do with these disturbing truths? Here's my invitation to you. For 1 week, practice a validation fast. Do something good, an act of generosity, a moment of prayer, an act of service, and don't tell absolutely anyone. No sharing, no casual mentions in conversations, no expectation of recognition. Observe how this affects your motivation and your inner experience. Examine your treasures. Identify what you protect most zealously, what you fear losing, what occupies your thoughts when you're alone. There you'll find your true God, be it money, status, security, or something more subtle. And finally, when anxiety about tomorrow begins to devour your today, ask yourself, can I solve this right now? If yes, solve it. If not, allow yourself to exist in the present moment, like the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. Matthew 6 isn't merely a text about ancient religious practices. It's an invitation to an inner revolution. It's a call to live a life of depth in a world of surfaces, of authenticity in an ocean of performances. In the final words of this chapter, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Perhaps the deepest secret Jesus offers us is that when we stop desperately chasing shadows, we finally find the light. If this study touched your heart, I'd like to encourage you to explore further. I've left something special in the first pinned comment that can help deepen your journey. Thank you for joining me today. Until our next study, may the truths that dwell in the shadows illuminate your path.